Hello, this is Dean Radin, and I'm on Your Superior Self.
Hi, I'm Anita Murjani, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hello, this is Dr. Raymond Moody, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, Cultural Creatives. I'm Bruce Lipton, and I'm here to join you with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Paul Selig, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, I'm Rena Greenberg, and I'm a guest here on Your Superior Self.
Professionalism at its finest. Rena, thank you so much for joining the show. How are you?
Great. It's good to be here, Trey. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. So you are a very, very educated writer on weight loss. Now a new book on CBD. Let's talk about this, right? So talk about your journey first off with weight loss and your story a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So what happened for me was I actually got sick at a very young age. I was in my mid-20s, and I had been running around New York City, a lot of energy. And it's almost like from one day to the next, it was literally as if someone pulled the plug. I just lost all my energy. I went down, and then I just started going from doctor to doctor, trying to search for answers, health. And after a year of this, no one found anything. I started to think, well, maybe it's all in my head. And right at that time, 2 or 3 people within a 24-hour period said to me, Rena, there's something with your heartbeat skipping. You should go to the ER. So, this is after a year of no one finding anything. So I was kind of skeptical, but I did it. It scared me. And I thought this is a sign. And I walked into the ER at Brooklyn's Methodist Hospital, and they whisked me in and told me my heart was beating at 30 beats per minute. And literally, I was facing death. I got admitted and ended up in cardiac care unit for 3 weeks, where a permanent pacemaker was then implanted into my heart.
Wow. Wow.
That was the beginning of my journey. Yeah.
What age was this?
I was 26.
26. So, first off, like what was going through your mind like after all this, right? Like what was that emotional roller coaster like?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I mean, it's a shock, especially when you're young, you think, oh, I'm just going to go forever. But to be honest, after spending a year trying to figure out what was wrong with me, I was almost like, oh, they finally found something. But it was really scary. I think the scariest moment for me was when the chief of cardiology, it was a teaching hospital, so I'm surrounded by, residents, like, you're in the zoo. And then all of a sudden, the chief of cardiology does a test on my heart, and he's like, you have the heart of an 80-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, how do you proceed that? Like, I mean, what do you do about that?
Well, that's it. There were really no solutions. That's what started me on my quest for health and wellness.
Mm-hmm. And where did it lead? Like, I can only imagine, like, obviously, I don't know. What's your background? Is it in health and wellness?
So what had happened at that point, I was 26 years old when that chief of cardiology told me I had the heart of he told me I had the heart of an 80-year-old. Prior to that, no, I'm living in New York City. I'm working in travel and fashion, entertainment, just having fun. Mm-hmm. But after that, I mean, it was like my whole life, that life like came to a close and my new life began, which really, honestly, Trey, has been miraculous because in my quest for healing, I discovered a lot. I mean, I learned about herbs and nutrition, but at that period of time, what fascinated me the most was the power of the mind. And then I went on, I got my degree in biopsychology. I'd gone back to school and I created a wellness program. And this is so gratifying, but my wellness program has been reviewed and sponsored in over 75 hospitals. Over 100 major corporations have had me on site to help their employees. And it was all about how to help people lose weight and stop smoking, using the mind, the body, the spirit, like a healthy path to weight loss and stop smoking. But honestly, for all those years, that's been decades now, I was using hypnosis, behavior modification. And so, I never expected to get into CBD, fast forward, whatever, decades later. But what happened then most recently is that I had developed glaucoma over the years, which is not painful at all. But what happens is it's a disease of the eye that very slowly over time, you're losing your vision. So it's pretty scary.
Sure.
And the reason that happens is because your pressures are up and you don't feel a thing. It just, when they measure the pressures of the eye and they're telling you that they're high. So my ophthalmologist, this was going back about 4 years, he said to me, your pressures are bad. And he's like, we're going to have to do surgery or increase your meds. And I'm like, oh, I didn't want to do that, especially with my history and everything. And also with addiction. So I was like, I got to find something else. And actually, my husband suggested to me, try CBD. And I'm like, I don't want to do anything that could, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was, I thought cannabis. No, I don't want to do that. But I tried it. I was pretty desperate. And I know you're laughing, but for me, I've been helping people break free from addiction for, 30 years. And I know, people have different thoughts about THC, but for me, I'm like, I am so easily addicted. I thought, I don't want to take a risk. But the good news was I tried CBD. It was like a miracle for me. My pressures went down. My eye doctor was thrilled. And then for me, the best part was all the side benefits. I'm like, I'm sleeping better. My hormones are leveled out. My blood sugar feels steady. Mm-hmm. I was really excited.
I have no idea what that is. Like CBD, I haven't a little bit, I see the signs and stuff. What is it? I guess I don't know if it's is it a part of marijuana? I don't really know.
Yeah, no, that's the problem. Most of us don't know. And the only reason I had to study it for myself was because I was desperate for help with my glaucoma. So once it worked for me, I wanted to share the results with other people, and mm-hmm. My clients. And I could not believe, just like what you're saying, there's so much confusion out there about what it is. And then on top of that, there's so much marketing, I hate to say it, but even deception, sure. In terms of what is it and how is it used and, what's quality, what's not. So CBD, here's what it is. It stands for cannabidiol, and it is a part of the cannabis plant. However, as long as it has less than 0.3% THC, legally it's labeled as hemp. So it's coming from the same plant, because the 0.3% THC is not enough to get you high, but it is enough to activate the CBD and create what's known as the entourage effect in the body, which is what gives it the medicinal effect mm-hmm. on the body, because it works directly on the body's own endocannabinoid system. So what the entourage effect means is simply that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So you want the whole plant when you're taking CBD. And what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of the CBD out there is just isolated parts of the plant. Hmm. So that's the difference.
Well, I guess that people get turned off, right, because of marijuana, and a lot of folks out there can't work, and they have to pass drug tests and things like that. I guess they're turned off by CBD because they don't know if they use it. They don't if I use lotion, will I spread it, and then will I fail a drug test? They just kind of, does it make sense?
Oh yeah, there's so much confusion out there, and the thing about the drug test is, if you absolutely, like you said, people at work and they're at risk if they had to take a test, then the best CBD to take is broad spectrum, because it's still the whole plant, but it has zero THC. The THC has been extracted. But for people who aren't concerned about drug tests, I mean, a lot of people come to me who are older, or they're buying for their parents who are older with a lot of aches and pains, and they may not be concerned about drug testing. So in that case, the best kind of CBD you want to get is full spectrum, because the full spectrum has that less than 0.3% THC, and it does have a higher medicinal value. So when I say medicinal value, what do I mean? Well, the studies show that CBD has been really beneficial for pain relief, for helping with sleeping, insomnia, and so many areas. Like I said, for me, the glaucoma, and just mm-hmm. for overall well-being and anxiety. Mm-hmm. When I discovered that CBD is being used even for PTSD, it's pretty exciting. So the full spectrum is going to have the highest medicinal value.
Well, how do you apply? Is it lotion?
Yeah. So CBD, when you have aches and pains, like my mom is 95 years old, she's got a lot of aches and pains. So she loves the 1000 milligram CBD pain relief cream. And the wonderful thing is, if there's a little bit of THC in the pain relief cream, it's not going to trip a drug test at all, because it's not going to go into your whole system. But what it does, it helps reduce the inflammation, helps to relax the muscles, and really helps with a lot of different kinds of pain. But then a lot of people want to take CBD orally for a more of a systemic effect. Like, let's say someone has like fibromyalgia or something, like, even for me, like the glaucoma, there was nothing I could apply. So I need to take it orally.
That's a gummy, right? You eat the gummies.
Well, listen, I've been into health and wellness now for a while, so I am not a strong advocate of gummies. And I don't carry gummies, and people are asking about gummies. But here's the thing: read the ingredients of your gummy. It's going to have some kind of chemicals in it, some kind of natural flavors, some kind of sweeteners. And for some people, it's not going to make a difference. If you've got a really healthy body and good digestion, good blood sugar, no prediabetes, fine. But also, the other thing about gummies is, because CBD is so expensive, it's not really the best way to make it bioavailable. Like, it's not the best way for the body to absorb CBD. So you're better off. The best way is really with a tincture, which is CBD and oil. And you just put it under your tongue and let it set for a few minutes and swish it around. And it's going to be immediately absorbed in the body. You're not going to have the loss, like, say, with a gummy. You're going to lose a lot in the digestion.
Is there different types? Like, is there the best CBD? Like, or is this the worst? Like, is there knockoffs? Like, I don't like,
Yeah. So there's so much people need to learn about CBD. And so I'm excited to have a conversation with you, Trey, because there are 4 types of CBD. I mentioned them earlier: full spectrum, which has the less than 0.3% THC, the broad spectrum, which still is the whole plant, but the THC is extracted. So that's the second best. And that's good if you are concerned about drug testing. Distillate means it's cheap CBD. And because the distillation process is an extra heat process, which is not necessary if you've used high quality hemp to start with to create the product. So distillate is not preferred. And that's something that most people don't know. But also, a lot of CBD out there brags 0 THC, but what it is isolate. And a lot of isolates are coming straight from China, maybe synthetic. The FDA has warned against these isolates. And even if you do get isolate, which is grown in the United States, science is showing, there's research to show sort of that the isolate works on a bell-shaped curve. So you're not going to get the strong medicinal value like you would, say, with full spectrum.
You have so much knowledge and health and wellness. It's so, like you said, the mind, and I just immediately really connected with that. You talked about some hypnotherapy, like you did training in that and help your clients with that modality.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was how I started out. I have to tell by the way I'm talking, right? Even though there was no reason was ever discovered, there was no cause for why did my heart rate plummet like that I was near death if I hadn't walked into the ER in that moment. Nobody knew. But when I walked out of the hospital after 3 weeks in the cardiac care unit, all I knew was I was going to do everything in my power to live and to become healthy. So I studied everything I could about health. But what I had to admit about myself is, even though no doctor was telling me, I knew that I had a very addictive nature. And I would say in my own diagnosis that I was addicted to sugar, sort of as an umbrella. And even including alcohol and including like all sugar, all sweeteners, I always, wanted more. So I realized that for me, I really had to cut it out in order to ever be healthy, because if I only had a little bit, I was always going to want more. Everybody's not like that, but I think because I had this pre-diabetic gene on my father's side. But how was I going to quit sugar? Like I was eating ice cream sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. I was, living in New York, walking to the muffin places, the bagel places, So I had to learn to employ the power of the mind. I had to learn self-hypnosis so I could totally turn around the way I thought about those foods or drinks. So I didn't want them anymore, even though everyone around me was still eating and, drinking the same things. So once I learned about the power of the mind and the hypnosis, I was sold. And then I went on and I've taught thousands of other people these techniques for how do you change your thinking so you're never on a diet, you're never deprived, you're never denied, you just don't want those foods anymore. It's sort of like your ex, you're done. Finished.
Well, that's so interesting because like I am, how do you, like, can you apply it to alcohol or anything like that? Like,
Oh yeah.
no?
Yeah. I mean, I've actually helped thousands of people, even with alcohol, with, a lot of people wouldn't come out and say like I'm a sugar addict. They'll just be like, oh no, I just enjoy, whatever, potato chips every day, or, going out to dinner 5 nights a week and, getting dessert. But the problem is, look, it's not a problem if it's not a problem. But once it's affecting your health, and by that, I mean your mental, your physical, emotional health, even if you're sitting there all day feeling guilty or ashamed or just unhappy with your body, then it's time to make a change.
Sure.
And the good news is, like, we have the power inside ourselves to flip those mental movies. Neuroscientists are now calling that part of the brain the default mode network, where you might have heard that term, where it's like repeat, repeat, repeat. We all have these different stories or memories, the voices in our head from the past, and we're repeating them. And we begin to identify as if that's who we really are. The good news is, through a modality like hypnosis, we can actually rewrite the script and change those mental movies and have a completely new way of living in the world.
Have you ever experienced anything like extraordinary, like some phenomena in a hypnosis? Have you ever experienced a past life in hypnosis?
Well, I've worked with a lot of people, and it's amazing the things that people tell me. And they'll come up out of hypnosis and say, oh my God, my dead grandmother came to see me, and here's what she said. And, one of the coolest things I do, Trey, is I do this gastric bypass hypnosis. I've been doing it now about 10 years. And it's amazing. I mean, people come in and I guide them through this experience. It's like a virtual surgery. They've had no actual surgery. And at the end, they'll say to me like, wow, my stomach's smaller. I can only eat 4 or 5 bites of food at a time. And this has all happened in their head. In fact, just recently, I worked with this gentleman, Rocky, in his 60s. He comes to me during COVID. He came September 2020. And since that time, he's down 110 pounds. And it was through doing a gastric bypass procedure. And he says, you know what? He's like, I still go to the buffets because he lives in Florida. He's going up still. Well, there's all these buffets and things like that. He's like, I get the foods I like. He's like, but I just eat a lot less. He's exercising and he's happier. So, yeah. But the coolest story I remember is a woman. I was doing groups probably like 20 years ago, groups in the hospitals, in the auditoriums. And one woman I used to do with a group of people, sometimes like 100 people, I tell, okay, now imagine there's a balloon tied to your wrist, and imagine your arms going up and up, in the whole room. It's like really amazing. It's wonderful to see, because people say it doesn't work. Well, if you imagine the balloon, it's going to work. You have to imagine it, right? So then it worked. Well, one day, one woman came up to me after a seminar, like a stop smoking seminar. She comes up to me, she goes, I can't believe this. She said, I had a stroke and my whole side, I wasn't able to move it. She goes, and when you were giving that suggestion of the balloon on my hand, that was the first time I was able, I don't think her arm went up like this, but just she felt some activity. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I think the power of imagination, I think, is so underrated, right? I think our visualization skills, like we're so focused on like our sense data, how we feel every day in this visual reality, audible sounds, taste, touch, smell, all of that we forget how powerful the mind is, like what you're talking about, like the placebo effect. That is a real thing. And it's crazy. I think there was a study, and I'm butchering these numbers, but like where I think it was like 1983, they did a study with cancer patients, and they gave a portion of I think they had a control group, and they had a group that they said, all right, we're going to give you chemo. And they really never give them chemo. And some of them lost their hair because they thought they were getting chemo, but they never really got it. Yeah. So like when you're telling me these things about the power of the mind, like I 100% like agree. Like the mind is so much more powerful than we think. We just have these belief systems that it's not, like we spend too much time believing our senses, which ultimately, I feel that, but it goes up, my spinal column and my nervous system, and it goes up to my brain. My brain says that's what it feels like anyway. So the brain is ultimately in charge of everything. We just have to have more faith in that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that is so true. And it is a shame that so many, like you're saying, so many people don't believe it. So, I loved what Wayne Dyer's, one of his books, he wrote so many books, but you'll see it when you believe it, right? And I love that, because we always think, oh, I'll believe it when I see it, but it actually does work the opposite. And belief is so important. And so, if you don't even realize, it's like amazing. Imagine if you have this amazing computer in your house, but you never turn it on, you never realize what it can do. That's what it's like. We're not using most of our capacity.
Mm-hmm. And that's where sugar comes in for me. Like, I'm trying to eliminate sugar, and it's tough because everything, like, I'm like you, like, if I like Airheads, Sour Patch Kids, and Swedish Fish are my weakness. If I see them, I will crush them, like all of them. So, but I want to eliminate sugar because, like, I'm in the process of eliminating alcohol and sugar because I want to have deeper meditations. Like, I want to have, stronger visualizations. I want to be able to tap into my inner source, more effectively.
Yeah.
What are some things that I mean, obviously not eat sugar, but it's like, what can I do to help guide me to that goal?
So one thing is, a lot of times, like you're naming like the Swedish Fish and stuff, and maybe as you're even thinking about them, it'd be interesting for you to notice like what's happening in your body. For example, do you start to salivate and imagine how good they're going to taste and kind of fantasize about them? So what happens there is that you're actually creating desire, and subconsciously, the way the brain works that we cannot change is that we're always moving towards pleasure. We're always moving away from pain. It's just the way we're wired. So the first trick is to realize that as long as we associate pleasure with those foods, we're going to want them. But as soon as we link them to the pain that they're actually causing, it becomes a lot easier to stay away from them. And if you think about that, anything in your life, whether it's a person or a substance, anything that you sort of like cut out of your life, it's because you started to link that person, substance, whatever, with pain. And so it wasn't hard. It's like easier to say goodbye. But as long as you're fantasizing or remembering all the good times, and think if it's a person, you're like, oh, you start thinking about the good times, and you're like, oh, give them a call. And you totally forget that you decided, no, they ripped me off. I wasn't going to talk to them,
Yeah.
So you kind of want to remember. So with the sugar, the thing is, if you think about it, you think about the sugar, then you're fantasizing how good it's going to taste, how, it's going to make you feel good and comfort you. Then you eat it, and then you're like, oh my God, why'd I eat that? I feel like shit. That's awful. So what we want to do is change the order of things, right? So when you think about it, you want to remember the last time you ate it, how horrible you felt, that gross feeling in your stomach, just feeling awful, having to do like 100 extra sit-ups that you didn't want to do because now you ate that. And then as you look at it, you think, you know what? I don't want you anymore. So it's kind of like doing a little self-hypnosis on your own. It's a great place to start.
I want to hear more about, like, I don't know, hypnosis, like some crazy stories. Tell me about like the woman who saw their dead grandmother. Like, dude, what type of brain states do they get in when you do this, the hypnosis? Is it like, are they getting into theta? Do you know?
Yeah, well, and for people who aren't familiar with the brain waves, when we're normally, like right now, we're sitting here talking, kind of, or if you're watching or listening, your brain is just chattering away, because you're having your own commentary, judgments, interpretations about what's going on. That's just what the conscious mind does, so we shouldn't feel bad about it. It's just always happening. And at that level, it's the beta level of brainwave. It's just fast and more choppy. Then the minute we close our eyes, which is such great news, we don't even have to do anything else, just closing the eyes. You start to go inward a little bit. The brainwaves slow down and they start to regulate a little more. And that's the alpha level, a little more relaxed, like daydreaming. And then we go deeper, delta and theta brainwaves. So yeah, when you go into hypnosis, I mean, just even at the lightest level, even when you think, if you just close your eyes and you don't even think you're hypnotized, you're going at least getting into the alpha brainwaves. And then as you go deeper, especially with the powerful imagery that you can start to, it can kind of feel almost like when you're playing a video game, like you become completely absorbed in these realities. which is a wonderful thing. And a lot of people come and they're skeptical and they're like, oh, I don't think I could be hypnotized. But people are amazed because it's our intelligence. Our intelligence allows us to get captured by a new reality. And when you're doing hypnosis consciously, it's a very positive reality. You know, it's helping you to achieve the life that you want, your own goals that you've stated. That's what you're coming to the hypnosis for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, you know, a great opportunity. Whereas when you think about it, we're actually being hypnotized all the time by the media, by advertising, by the food industry, the alcohol industry. And so what's happening there is they're giving us the pictures. Like they're showing us the people drinking, laughing, eating pizza, having fun. They're not showing us the people in the hospital wards, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a form of hypnosis. So now we're starting to think, oh, wow, I want to go out drinking, then I'll have more friends and I'll be having more fun. It's like we buy into the story so we can create whatever story we want. And that's what hypnosis can help us to do, change the story so that we can access a greater potential in our lives.
Sure. Yeah. It's that double-edged sword of materialism, right? Like, it's I'm afraid to watch, you know, TV most of the time because it's like, you know, you get into those, you know, you get into that because when you get into something like a show or something like that, like, you don't, what are the subliminal messages they're sending us, you know, like when, you know, like kids even really, I mean, the kids, I watch the kids are already in, like my 3-year-old's already in, like, you know, she's walking around in like, you know, theta or whatever, you know, because her brain hasn't fully matured yet. So she's like, you know, just kind of, you know, watching Coco Melon, which is the new show. You know, it's like, I really hope there's not any like hidden messages in this show because she's really watching this thing. And I know her brain is like right there in the theta. And I know she's getting some stuff subconsciously. But I love visualization. I love meditation. I love like using my imagination. I think it's so underrated. I think because people doubt those realities like you're talking about, but I don't think they're, you know, people want to like, oh, that's not reality. But what is reality? This is reality. What says this is reality? It's your subjective experience, right?
Exactly. And think about it. Every action is preceded by thought. So that's why we hear the phrase, our thoughts create our reality. There's no house that's built without plans. The architect has created the plans on paper, and then the house is built. Well, the same thing happens in our own life. And we don't always realize that that's the issue, is we don't have the conscious awareness. So let's just say someone works 9 to 5. I've seen this so many times. They come home from work, plop down on the couch, open a beer, bag of chips, turn on the TV, and just think, oh, I'm going to relax. When that happens, a lot of times people think, oh, I'm just being spontaneous. I came home, I just decided. What they don't realize consciously is many times if they go back earlier in their day, maybe at 10 o'clock in the morning, they had a stressful event. They didn't like the way their boss spoke to them, coworker, whatever. They made a mental movie, not even consciously. You know what? When I get home today at 5 o'clock, I'm going to lay on that couch with a beer and a bag of chips. They set it up, not realizing it. Now, the same person next day, same thing could happen, stress, whatever, client's angry, who knows what. But instead, they make a mental movie. Today at 5 o'clock, I'm getting home, I'm throwing on my gym clothes, and I'm going to go for a run in the park. And they make that movie, either consciously or subconsciously, walk in the door, and all of a sudden they're like, find themselves in their closet, finding their gym clothes, and next thing you know, they're out in the park. It doesn't happen spontaneously. It's because we have the thought. Think about even in your relationships. Before, you know, you think, oh, I bet this person's, you know, pissed at me. And so you're thinking that in your head. Well, the way you respond to that, you think you're responding to the person, but you're not, you're responding to the movies in your head. So the more we're aware of that, the more we can create movies of peace and love and harmony. And this is not a cliche. This is true. And being healthy, like doing those behaviors that feel good. If we imagine that we go into a refrigerator, pull out all our salad stuff and our protein and whatever, and make this delicious, amazing salad, you know, maybe whatever foods, you know, for me, I'll put a little goat cheese and pecan. So I'm never feeling like I'm on a diet. But that's the food that I crave it because I'm eating those healthy foods. And in my mind, I'm running movies that I'm really going to enjoy this. Whereas, you know, like 20, 30 years ago, I'm imagining eating pizza and all that. that's what I'm eating. Now, when I think of pizza, I think, I'm going to feel gross. No, thanks. Yeah.
And you're in New York too. That's kind of hard, right? Like, I mean,
Well, I was in New York. I've actually been in Florida now for a while. So,
okay. So yeah. But in New York, saying no to a pizza is like, oh, that's blasphemy, I think.
it was hard. But, you know, it's all in the mind. It really, really is. It's all how you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever used visualization in your career or in your life or any type of life events that outside of health, right? Like, I mean, like, just kind of like visualizing yourself being successful.
Oh, are you kidding? All the time. Yeah. I mean, I had my own show on PBS, and then, you know, a lot of media appearances on CNN, Good Morning America, The Doctor Show. So, you know, that was really, really exciting. But I would always, before, you know, doing anything like that, always imagine that it's going to be a great success. And also I'd imagine the people that are going to be viewing, and even now, and imagine that something I say, even if just to one person, can be helpful and create a life change for them. And that's always, you know, my mission, is really feeling like that there's some part of my own experience and what I've been able to share that's making a difference. And I think by visualizing it, like you say, and really setting that intention out there, I just believe it kind of goes out in the energy airwaves and can happen.
Sure. I agree. I'm a big fan. Like, you know, you're talking about Wayne Dyer. I love that guy. He was a big fan of Neville Goddard, and, you know, I'm a big Esther Hicks fan as well. And they, you know, they all promote the idea that our thoughts create our reality, but it's also our emotions, you know, getting that brain heart coherence lined up, and getting in sync with your mind and body and soul and spirit, or whatever you want to call it, you know, whatever your labels are, but, you know, getting aligned with that true self, just with your beingness and your body. But making sure that your body is in tune with that means that you have to do the things, you know, take care of the body, you know, make sure you're putting the right things in your body, make sure you're doing the right things. I call it, you know, it's weird. I was doing a meditation, and I was using HemiSync, right? Like binaural beats. And I get into the theta state that way. And it was like, you know, you gotta build up that potential energy so you can convert it into kinetic energy. So the things that I do to build the potential energy in my life is, I got to do the meditations, I got to do the exercising, I got to do the eating right, I got to do all these things to build the potential energy up in my life. And then I convert it by going out and doing the actions of, like, you know, the podcast or going to school or doing things like that. And that potential energy, when it builds up, it has the potential to convert into kinetic energy, which is success, or which is good luck, or which is whatever you want to name it. You know, does that make sense?
Absolutely. And also, you're raising your own vibration, and that's something that people can feel and that they respond to. So that's really awesome.
Yeah. I get into that so much, and, you know, and I'm a big fan of Robert Monroe and Thomas Campbell, who's a physicist. He's the author of My Big Toe. He talks about, you know, our consciousness, right? Like, I'm kind of over the word spirituality, right? Like, I'm more in the consciousness, right? And us being a part of that larger consciousness system, like, our main objective here is to raise our vibration, like you're talking about, and, like, you know, raise our consciousness, our awareness, and kind of, like, you know, fall into that more being of love, and spreading that good vibes, and, you know, seeing our humanness and the ego, and trying to lower the ego, you know, the fear, you know, like those types of things. And by, you know, doing, you know, looking at some of your books, you know, lowering our sugar addiction, or, you know, using CBD to heal some of the ailments, so I can get back out and running, and just taking care of ourselves helps us achieve that goal of raising our consciousness, of being more aware, you know, consciously being more aware about what we put in our bodies, and how we approach the world, and self-love, really, you know, like,
Exactly.
I think it's amazing. And the fact that you have all this literature is really amazing. I mean, that's kind of intimidating, really. I mean, how do you, were you intimidated? I mean, because, like, not a lot of people know about CBD, right? Like, I mean, you've written some very educated books, but like CBD, right? Like, were you intimidated to be the authority on that?
Yeah, not really, because I feel like it's so needed. People are really confused. Like, for example, a simple thing like Amazon. People assume, oh, I can trust Amazon, so I'll buy my CBD on Amazon. What people don't know is that CBD is actually prohibited on Amazon. So, for example, I have an Amazon store, and I have to abide by their terms and conditions that I, sign, that I agree to. And they say absolutely no cannabinoids, no CBD it's not allowed on their site. Yet when you search CBD on Amazon, a lot of things are going to pop up. So what that means is that either these products some of them have real CBD and they've snuck past the Amazon review board, or they're not CBD at all. They're just hemp. And when I say hemp, it's hemp seed oil, which is not CBD. Here's the confusing thing, Trey. All CBD is hemp, but not all hemp is CBD, meaning that a lot of hemp is just cheap hemp seed oil. Like, it's still a good oil like olive oil or grapeseed oil, but it's not medicinal like CBD. And people don't even realize it. So those are the kind of things that I really wanted people to become aware of. So my book, which I'm even giving away free now, the CBD for Health and Wellness Questions You Should Be Asking, I actually have a lot of diagrams in it, like where I'm showing, for example, pictures of labels and third-party analysis tests. So I really show people what to look for. What are some of the red flags? What are some of the things that show you, okay, this is a quality product?
Yeah, definitely. I guess they don't want to be a drug dealer, I guess. Is that why they won't allow
No, it's a stupid thing. It's the banking.
Really?
Even though CBD is now legal, there was a farm bill that was signed originally in 2014 by the president of the United States at that time, and then again in 2018. And this legalized CBD in the United States. However, federally with banking, there's still issues. So a lot of the public doesn't realize that, but anyone who sells CBD, for example, on their website had to get special kind of banking, and Amazon just doesn't allow it for those reasons. Now, hopefully in the future that will change, but right now it really isn't safe to buy CBD on Amazon because you have no idea what you're going to get, and chances are you're really just going to get hemp.
So how long did it take you to become the authority? Where did you, people can go to your website and find out information about it, but like, how long did it take you to do that for yourself? I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there.
There is. And I really, as I told you, I've been in health and wellness for about 30 years, but the CBD, it's been about 4 years that I first discovered it and began researching it and studying it. And there are hundreds and hundreds of studies showing the efficacy of CBD and how it's helped people. In fact, what's super exciting is even a recent study this month talking about how hemp is being used now. Well, it was a study done at Oregon State University showing how hemp can help with COVID-19, with the SARS virus. And because it's binding to the same spike protein that the virus binds to. So it actually makes it difficult, according to this brand new study, for the virus to actually get into the human cell. So that's super exciting. So a lot of these studies, I have them, on my website. I have sources so people, can research and see where this information comes from and what they need to know. But some stuff, like, for example, why is the origination of where your CBD comes from? Why is that important? Well, the reason why is because it turns out that hemp is a very absorbent plant. And in fact, there was a big nuclear explosion in Chernobyl in the 1980s, and it destroyed the nearby surrounding land for habitat, for agriculture. And believe it or not, they actually put hemp plants in for phytoremediation. And those hemp plants absorbed up all that nuclear waste and all the heavy metals from the ground, which was great news for that area because now they could use the soil. But when you think about you're going to consume CBD as a medicinal supplement, you want to be so sure that it was grown on pristine organic soil. And that's one of the things that people may not realize. Maybe they'll think, oh, I can get this whatever cheaper CBD here. Well, did the seeds come from China? How was it regulated? Do you know what the conditions of the soil and the environment were? So that's why, for me, I think it's really important that the CBD you ingest is grown in the state of Colorado, because in Colorado, they have very strict farming regulations. So you know it's going to be a lot more pristine, more pure, especially if you're using USDA organic certified CBD.
Wow, there's so much information. Wow. Yeah, so I guess you've been in health and wellness for so long. You know your resources, you know where to go, where to, how to fact check, how to look at the articles and the reviews. Because I mean, there's just so much misinformation out there, like if you look at some of, obviously if you watch the, I don't know, how many times do you see Pfizer out there, right? Like, so many different, sponsors of different modalities out there that you just kind of got to be careful. And I think CBD, right? I've heard so many great things about it, like, things that it could help you achieve. But I want to hear from you. Like, what are some of the pros? What can I gain from taking CBD?
I think the number one thing is for people who are suffering with pain and anxiety. Those are really the two main things that CBD is really great for. And I'm so impressed because I'm seeing that CBD helps with all different kinds of pain. But I've had people tell me, I mean, that they've had pain for decades, that nothing else touched. I had one woman write to me recently, and it's very exciting. She's taking CBD blend with herbs and actually I use a lot of organic apple cider vinegar. So CBD super cider is what she's taking. And she was saying how it helped her with menopause, got rid of all her menopause symptoms. And so that's really exciting. Another woman reached out to me and let me know that the CBD helped her with arthritis, where none of that, she had even been on pharmaceutical drugs, didn't touch it. Another gentleman reached out and told me that he had been taking medical marijuana from a dispensary and preferred the CBD so much more, which really, I was just thrilled to hear that. So I think a lot of it's the quality of the product that you're taking. You want to make sure it's high quality. And there's a lot of things that people don't know, like, for example, the farms that are growing the CBD, there's a lot to the genetics of it. For example, interestingly, the hemp plant has the male and the female, and for CBD, you want a mostly female field because the male actually just puts more seeds out, and the seeds and the stalks of the hemp plant don't contain any CBD, so it's just a waste. So you want the aerial parts of the plant, which is the flower and the leaves. So that's why, like you said, the misinformation, all CBD is not equal. And so in my book, I really explain to people what to look for to make sure they're getting the quality product. Because I hate to see people just like throwing their money away and then not getting the results.
Sure. What kind of plants do you have behind you there?
Oh, well, I have some beautiful roses and flowers. Those are really I had a birthday last week. So
happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. So my daughter, she's a nurse in Baltimore. She sent me those.
Oh, really? She's a nurse in Baltimore, huh?
Yeah,
I'm in Baltimore right now.
You are?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, cool. I didn't know that, Trey.
Yeah.
She loves Baltimore.
Oh, I love it too. It's great. We've just been getting hammered with snow. If that would stop, it'd be great.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, trust me, you're not missing anything out, up here in the north. It is cold. It's like December was like not too bad. And then all of a sudden January hit and it was like, somebody was like, all right, now it's going to be 2 degrees. So
I know.
So talk about, we talk about CBD and do you have your own creams that you make, or is it just, you're just an expert on CBD?
Yeah. Well, I actually didn't set out to create my own brand. Like I said, I was doing these, the programs with the hypnosis and really helping people that way. And I love that. It's so rewarding. But when I saw what was going on and how hard it was for people to find quality products that they could afford, I actually did create my own line, and it's at Rena's Organic. And I mean, the product that I really love is, you asked about cream. It's a 1,000 milligram CBD full spectrum pain relief cream. And it's just been great for people who are in physical pain. Even, in fact, I had a full page story last year in First for Women magazine. One of my customers had gone to First for Women and shared her story. She had had a concussion. Her name is Cindy, and she had fallen off her bicycle, and oh my God, her head was throbbing. This was 4 months later. She applied the Rena's Organic, the 1,000 milligram pain relief cream onto her temples, and it was unbelievable. She said it got rid of her headache. She started using it every day, made all the difference, started, turned a corner to healing. And First Magazine did a whole story on her, full page. So that
really,
yeah.
Wow. What other? I mean, is that so? How do you even how do you even get that? Like how do you even create a cream? Like you have to find like a supplier. Like I don't even know how that even works. Like how do you go about that?
My first product ever, because again, I was not really historically into selling products, but the first one I created was for myself in my kitchen. I created Slender Cider, and that was it is an herbal formula with 11 herbs, therapeutic to help with weight loss, appetite, balancing the blood sugar, and in a base of organic apple cider vinegar with cherry and lemon concentrate. And what you would do is just mix a little in water and just sip it throughout the day. And what it does is it physically cuts the cravings because it alkalizes the body. So after a while, at first I was just giving it to friends and giving it to clients. People were like, oh my God, I love this stuff. I want more, So I knew I had to find a manufacturer. I couldn't keep just doing it in my kitchen. It took me over a year to find someone that would fresh brew the herbs. I mean, I went to see a lot of manufacturers, even that were real close to me here in where I am now in Florida. And they were like, oh, we'll just throw in a bunch of powders and, find shortcuts and sweeteners. I was like, no. And then the contract manufacturer I finally found was out in Oregon, outside of Eugene, Oregon. And they're just incredible. So they have been my contract manufacturer now for about 11 years.
Wow.
And fresh brew all the herbs just like a cup of tea. I mean, it's real. Their facility is run by a master herbalist who's into Chinese herbs and all that. So it's
really,
yeah, it's wonderfully done. USDA certified organic.
Is that on the website too?
Yeah, all my products are on the website. The because I have a lot of this will be the Slender Cider bottle, but I have a lot of formulas, even with the CBD, where I mix them with herbs for special effects, really for balancing, because the whole goal, and a lot of what you're talking about too, is just reaching that homeostasis, reaching that balance, reaching, that peak self, that peak feeling. So my herbal formulas are all to help that accelerate that for people on a physical level, while we're doing all the things you talked about for the mind and the emotion.
Do you believe in synchronicities at all?
Of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I am, the more that I tap into that, the more I tap into that self, that knowing, that the more that it pops out in my, my reality. And then it's like there's this psi uncertainty law or rule or something. Like as soon as you tell somebody about it, it goes away. Right. It's like the universe, it's like a one-on-one relationship with the universe. It's like, you start seeing things like, the clock has certain numbers on it whenever you look at it, or something happens, you think of someone and they call you, like these synchronicities happen. Or you're trying to find a supplier or a manufacturer, and all of a sudden you find one, and you guys are in business for 11 years. But when you tell somebody about it, like, it's just crazy how it works. I've noticed it more so now, like when I really dug into my meditations, when I really dug into that part of myself, like I notice it more, like the reality, like, like the universe is saying, keep going, but when I ever tell somebody about it, it's like, then it stops. It's like that psi uncertainty principle where it's only you and the universe, and it doesn't matter what other people think about, it doesn't matter what their opinions are, right? Because it's like their subjective experiences up to that point, they're going to either be limited by their beliefs and not really agree with what you're saying, or they're going to misinterpret that experience because of their experiences. So what I've really honed in on for myself is just kind of keep it to myself and just kind of enjoy it, like, I don't know, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you bring up a really important point, but I think the most important thing I'm getting out of what you're saying is really how important it is to really trust yourself and the inner knowing of your own experience. Like, when something happened to you. I mean, it's interesting you bring this up. I don't say this much to people, but I have had an experience, I would say now 3 times in my life where it was a true miracle. I prayed not for myself, but for another person 3 times. And within seconds, because the thing I prayed for was sort of an instant thing to help the person at the time, something they needed. And immediately they got what they needed. Immediately.
Really?
And this happened 3 times. But what was interesting is when I did share it, it wasn't like a rewarding experience to share it.
Sure.
And I realized, wow, this happened just for me to have that confirmation of my own connection.
Sure. No, it's got to work like that because it's your knowing. You go from that belief of something higher than yourself is really influencing your reality. And then something happens and now you know.
Yes. Now you know. Right. And it doesn't matter like what other people think, just like you said.
No, it doesn't. But then we need validation because it's like that analytical mind saying, "Oh, I need to analyze the data, make sure and compare, and make comparisons to validate this." But really, what are you validating?
Well, yeah, no, but I think it depends. Like when you're talking about it as a way to inspire someone to have that faith in themselves, because you're just really showing someone, I have this connection, but you have it also. And so in that sense, it's a wonderful thing to share because I think it can inspire people to realize the amazing power we have to plug in. So it's sort of like our bodies are like the lamps, and then we just plug into that electricity and get this amazing download of information when we're open to it.
Yeah, Rena, look at you. I like this conversation.
But I think sometimes you have to be patient. Because a lot of times I think we expect it's going to happen right away. And sometimes it does happen right away. And other times we're told, that might be the message we get. Be patient. So that's what we have to do. But I think, too many people are looking out there, even like with weight loss, we're talking about like diets. They're looking out there on the internet for the best diet. But every body is different. We have to learn to really learn our own body and trust ourselves and see what works for ourselves.
If you don't know, you don't know, right? Like it depends on the person and the individual and where they're at. Like now, obviously the internet is a tool and people can Google things and people and the marketers know this. So you Google, how do I lose weight? And then you get the top 5 ways on how to lose weight. And it's not always the right thing to do. Most of the time it's not the right things to do because it's not specifically for you. It's like they may be hacking on, results from scientific studies, just making things up that make no sense. Like coffee causes, blah, 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 or, whatever. But it is, you have to do the work. I think you have to read the literature for yourself. You have to, but if people don't know, they don't know. And it's like, they have to experience it for themselves. And then usually if they're trying to do the right thing, I think this is just my opinion, that they will stumble upon something at some point that will point them in the right direction, and find people like you, Rena, who have accurate information about CBD and weight loss and things of that nature that help them point them in a better direction.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is a journey. It really can be the journey of finding health. And a lot of things are trial and error. But the good news is, I've said this even with people who quit smoking, come to me. Most people who quit have tried 3 to 5 times in the past. Most people who successfully lose weight and keep it off have tried again 3 to 5 times in the past. So we learn from our life experience. We don't even need to call them mistakes. Like, let's say you read a book on fruit. You're going on the fruit diet. Well, there's probably a lot of truth in that. Fruit's really healthy, has a lot of fiber, a lot of nutrients. But what if fruit upsets your blood sugar? Like, it could happen for some people that they really have to be careful with fruit. So each of us has to learn for ourselves what's right, because there's no necessarily right and wrong that's for everybody.
Sure.
That's the thing.
That is absolutely accurate. Rena, thank you so much for joining the show. How can people find out more about you, and where can they get this book?
Thank you, Trey. It's been great talking to you. So for the weight loss and the hypnosis, it's easywillpower.com, EASY, and then willpower.com. For the CBD, my free book, CBD for Health and Wellness Questions You Should Be Asking, you just go to renasorganic.com and just download it. And you can really learn everything you need to know about CBD. And I have a lot of information on the site as well.
I need to get some of that tea. Rena, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you.